Welcome everyone to Paradigm Shifters. Today, I am so pleased to introduce my special guest, Murielle Fellous. She is a certified clinical EFT practitioner, a quantum coach, a level 2 Reiki master, and the founder of CoParenting with the Universe. Welcome, welcome. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Yes, yes. And I appreciate that I got to come onto your podcast and now you come on to my podcast and we get to continue our beautiful conversation here.
I love that we were both interviewing each other because it shows different aspects of our work, and it also shows how we, in a way, we connect already by EFT and many other tools and things that we agree on.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And so, this podcast is about people who are shifting paradigms. And we are definitely doing that. I know you are definitely a paradigm shifter. So I'd love to hear more about how you are shifting paradigms in your own business and in your private practice and the work that you do.
So it started with me, as it always, not always, but very often does, where I was forced to shift paradigms with some kind of kick in the rear, because I was coaching people on relationship for years, and then my children became teenagers, and they started acting out in very potentially dangerous ways, which put me in a like 24/7 level of anxiety, because I was afraid that they would exploring parties and stuff that they shouldn't be exploring. And I was always afraid to find one of them dead. So it spiraled me into a depression without me realizing, because very often what happens is that we are in a low grade anxiety for years, and we don't even know it because it's our normal state. We don't know otherwise. And once I was down, really, really in depression, I was forced to, one, realize that we don't control anybody. And that was very, very obvious. And second, that it wasn't my job to protect them 24/7, because I could not do that. I wasn't, whatever you want to call it, the universe, the higher power, God. If I was meant to lose a kid, there's nothing I could have done that would have prevented it. That was my belief. So I started really bringing myself back up with surrendering what is not mine to the universe. And that could only be done, and that's what I teach people when you think about changing paradigms. First of all, recognize your zone of powerlessness and give that zone back to a higher power, because then you're freeing some energy to allocate to your zone of power. And all that with working on emotional regulation. That's where EFT is very potent and very efficient to get to a level of vibration. I talk a lot about energy, like an elevator, if you want, to a level, a floor where you're neutral enough to be able to tap into the infinite field of wisdom and love and assistance. And then you can, with working on yourself and taking action where you can, and in a way summoning or asking or aligning with the assistance of something bigger than you, then you can co-parent with the universe and really be exerting your full impact into the world and onto your kids. That's the short version of it.
Oh, wow. Yeah. No, I mean, I can see how like getting that in a nutshell isn't easy, but you did it beautifully. It's so simple when you explain it like that. It's just getting that coherence so we can tap into with the prefrontal cortex, right? With the part
Exactly.
of our creative and problem solving and imaginative, and shifting out of survival mode and into creativity and receptivity. Is so many people struggle with that, right?
And it's really a pity, because after I changed, it literally changed my life in everything I do. I was already I loved meditation. That's one of my morning routines practices. But this brought it to the next level, to a place where I acknowledge that I'm not only this body, and I acknowledge that my body, my nervous system, my brain could be used as a tool to access who I really am and really get to the most powerful that I could be. And like you talked about the frontal cortex, and when you live in anxiety, your brain, the stress center of your brain, the amygdala, is activated to a whole cascade of biochemicals events, to where you don't have access to the full potential of your brain, your frontal cortex, to come up with solutions and to be able to really have a full picture and to really be resourceful at your best. So that's what I really changed. And now, even in my business, in everything I do, my first priority is to be emotionally aligned to at least neutral, if not higher, like really hopeful, in love with the world, depending on what emotion I'm after, to really have access to that full potential within me and outside of me.
Yeah, that's a huge shift personally. I just want to acknowledge that anyone who's listening just probably can, relate to that if you've made that shift. And sometimes you shift there and you shift back, and then you shift there and you shift back, and you start to feel the difference. You can spend more time in the state you want to be in, the more you learn how to shift back. Yeah. So.
And you bounce back like this compared to before, where it would take you a day or two. It will take you an hour and you're back.
Yes.
To give you an example, after all that, one of my teens tried to kill themselves. But because I had changed so much, I remember when they came back to the psychiatric hospital, I was talking to them, and they became triggered and started bumping their head in the wall. And I remember that split of a second, that second where you make your decision, you're present enough to say. I remember telling myself, oh my God, my child. And then getting back, I didn't do the motion or anything. I thought like that. And then I said, nope, not going there. Stay strong. And I was able to not react with panic or anything, and to be much more a help to them, because when they are weakened like this, when they're depressed, they need you to be strong. And that's where now today I tell moms with problems like that, to the priority number one is not even your kid, it's you. You need to be strong and resourceful, because they can feel what you feel. They're like sponges, and they need you. And because of the work, the brain learns with repetition and emotion. When you do it enough, it becomes like second nature. I will remember that moment all my life, because that's when I knew I'm stronger. I've changed.
What an incredible story. I was just about to ask you, like, if you had one thing you could tell parents listening right now, because I know they want to hear, like, what can they do when their teens are acting out? And is that the one thing, or is there anything else you could tell them as far as how to start approaching this?
So what I think is first crucial is to see where is your power and where is your powerlessness. Do not try to control what is not yours to control or to act on. And the second thing is, remember, you're not alone. You're not alone. And the other thing that really saved me is to remember, I have what it takes. I may not know yet how or what, but I have what it takes. I could have said that 1,000 times a day. I have what it takes. And I did, step by step. You can't see the whole way, but see the next step, and then get solid in there and see the next step. And literally, I don't know if you want me to tell a short story of what I consider a mini miracle, if you want. So when my son was 13, he was struggling because he had a very rough childhood. I was already raising them by myself since he was 2. And he needed a good male role model. I didn't have anyone around me. I didn't have family in the US where I raised my kids. So there is an organization called Big Sisters, Big Brothers, which is a charitable organization that matches volunteers with kids. So I turned to them and I said, I want you to find a match for my son. And they told me, he's already 13. People don't like older kids. They want younger kids. We're going to put him in the database, but we have very little hope that he will ever find a match. I said, put him in anyway. Fast forward 2 years later, he was struggling even more, skipping school. It was really becoming serious. I remember I was at work. I was like, show me what to do. I went to a room. I meditated for 10 minutes. I tapped to be neutral. And I said, show me the next step. Am I supposed to read a book, learn something, meet someone? I kid you not. 2 hours later, I got a phone call from Big Brothers, Big Sisters. He was now 15. And they told me, we have a match for him. This person had the same, because we're Jewish, same background as him. Same kind of story. When he was his age, he was struggling, and he was now a lawyer. And they matched my son with him. And until we left the US 3 years later, they were like seeing each other almost something like twice a month, if not more. And it really, really helped him. I always believe that it's because I asked and it was delivered. But you have to ask when you're not in panic, when you're not in fear. Otherwise, you are vibrating at that level. Your nervous system is reacting at that level, and nothing good is coming.
Yeah. Is that an actual example of actually co-parenting with the universe then? Where you're like, universe, help me parent.
It is. And it's one example out of many. And I also do a gratitude writing practice in the morning. And when my kids were younger, I didn't have the financial means to go on vacation sometimes, or we could go, but we couldn't buy tickets, let's say, for SeaWorld. And I remember doing one day an affirmation for a week. I get tickets at a price I can really afford. Just before I went, I had a coworker who came back and she said, here, I haven't used 3 tickets for SeaWorlds. They're going to go to waste. You might as well take them. So I just had to buy one. So, and that happens so many times. I mean, when you start living at that level and really making it, it's not easy. It's simple, but not easy. Making an effort to really be aware of how you feel in the moment. Are you neutral emotionally? If you're under neutral, lower emotions like fear, panic, sadness, try to do whatever you have to do to become neutral. And EFT is amazing for that. Meditation, visualizations, affirmations with tapping, with EFT. And then open and ask and be flexible, because it doesn't always come in the way you expect. Anything that comes to you, you know, is your answer. It can be a book, and you may have to do a little bit of work to transform yourself too. But anything, pay attention, because it's going to be the answer.
Yeah. Wow. That's an incredible story. I love that you're able to share that real story with everyone, because I know that makes it real for us when we can experience what you experienced, and then we can learn from your experience, and that, you know, we can share this with others. And I'd like to actually I want to kind of go back, because I want to make sure that everyone that's listening and watching understands the paradigm we're talking about shifting here. And if I heard it correctly, is it that as a mother, you're totally responsible for everything that happens to your children? Is that the old paradigm, or can we define that a little more clearly?
My old paradigm was, I can control anything. It's my job to protect them 100% of the time. But as everyone knows, it's impossible. It's literally impossible. So I had to really realize that that was not my job to do 1% of the time, because when they're not with me, I can put things like, if you want, rails to know that they won't hurt themselves, but the rest is up to them and up to the universe. And and it's not easy to do either. I had to go down to the fear, inside the fear, and realize that if I lost a kid, then God, the universe, life would give me the tools to deal with that. But there was no use to deal with that now when it didn't even happen. I was weaker if I was doing that. And
Wow.
that's what I really, the major shift that I did was that.
Yeah, do you think that, so if you're speaking to parents out there who are operating in this paradigm and maybe don't even know it, what are the consequences of staying in this paradigm?
First of all, anxiety, especially when your kids start acting out, if like mine. Second of all, it's a feeling of powerlessness and hopelessness. And you damage your relationship with your kid, because I was in such anxiety that all my talk with them were about, are you doing this? Are you smoking weed? Are you this? Are you that? Instead of really building on the love that is existing and making them feel responsible and transmitting the message differently, and really building strong communication to a point where they are not afraid to come to talk to you. Because when my kids tried to kill themselves, they were not at my house. They were at their father's house, who didn't even realize. And luckily enough, he took some Xanax, because his girlfriend has Xanax. They took a quantity. Thank God, the body, if you take enough for it to be toxic, but not enough to fall asleep, you will throw up. So he threw up. But he called me and he said, Mom, if you don't come pick me up, I'm going to kill myself.
Wow.
And of course, I went. And I thank God until today that I had this kind of communication with my kids, and that I was open enough for them to know that they can come tell me anything.
Yes.
And that's something that is built. This trust is built over time to a point where even if you don't say something, when they tell you something, what I tell moms to do is, when they're going to have an important conversation with their teenager or their kids or anyone, go in a room first, connect with what you love in them. Don't think about the problem. Connect with them even as a baby, if you can find a situation now, an event where you think about your love for them. Connect with that love. And then connect with your responsibility of being non-judgmental. It doesn't mean you're not going to protect them, but to give them a safe space to tell you what they need to tell you without reaction, not on your face, not with your words. And that I do with tapping. I get neutral. I'm like, anything we can deal with, and then go into conversation. Because if you go with trying to control, or if you become triggered about something, it's so complex. When you raise a kid, all your wounds, like, you work with the inner child a lot. Anything that is not resolved, any wound that is not healed, you're going to be triggered by your children in 1 second. So be aware of where you react that is not connected to what's really happening, but connected with something in the past. And anywhere you overreact, chances are it's an echo of the past.
Yeah.
So I remember as a parent, once I was overreacting to something, and I was like, whoa, I'm repeating something that was living in my family when I was a kid. So I was like, okay, I need to take care of that. So anytime you feel, and don't judge yourself. It's not your fault. It's unconscious programming.
Yeah.
Anytime you catch yourself, work with that to become more neutral. And the more and more you become neutral, the less and less you react. And the more and more you can give them a safe container to discuss, to talk, to see how you can help them blossom and stay safe. And it's true with kids, but true with anyone else.
Yeah.
If you're married, your husband or wife can push the buttons like that.
Yeah.
And the more neutral you become, the less button there is to push. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, like the worst thing that can happen is if you get your child triggers your inner child, and you got 2 children trying to deal with that, then you can see how that doesn't go anywhere good. So I love the way you explain that. And also, just kind of coming from my perspective, from the work that I do, what you're describing is like the opposite of a narcissistic dynamic. Like what you're describing is building this relationship of unconditional love and support and trust, where you are allowing that child to have whatever feelings they have are okay, and they're validated, and that's a safe space that they can authentically be. Whereas with the narcissistic dynamic, that is never safe, and a child is never going to trust a narcissistic parent because they know that they can't truly safely be who they are there. So I love that you're shifting that. The paradigm I'm hearing here is like, this is a way of being within a relationship with anyone, but especially our own children. You're healing generational trauma, and you're using your own trigger as an entry point for your own healing, with ripple effects to them, and then breaks that pattern. That's pretty
Because
powerful.
it's for me, our triggers are some kind of calls from our soul or from our unconscious to heal. It's a call for healing.
Right.
And when you see it like that, when you can forgive yourself for being so reactive, you can forgive others also more easily. It's a win-win cycle.
Absolutely. Yes. I love this conversation. You know, we could talk about this for a very long time, but I actually want to make sure we have time for everyone that's listening and watching to know, how can they work with you? Because I'm sure some people are thinking, wow, I need this. How can they work with you?
So they can visit my website, CoParentingwiththeuniverse.com. And right now I'm working mostly one-on-one, but I also have a course that's going to come up on putting an end to the recurring arguments with our teens or anyone else. And that's the way I in the future probably have a membership, but not now. And I have classes and courses all the time, so they can just visit the site. They can listen to the podcast, because I share a lot in the podcast, a lot of tools, and I have EFT videos on YouTube as well. So
that's
anywhere.
great. Yeah. I'll make sure, and I'm going to put all these details here in the description below. So we'll check out her website, her YouTube channel, and get all the details there, and the resources, because you do have a lot of free resources, which is amazing. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I have a freebie coming about an EFT session regarding arguments on my website.
EFT session, yes, that's wonderful. I can't wait to see that for sure. Well,
thank you.
I'll tell you what, Murielle, before we go, I just want to give you a chance. Like, is there one last message you would like to give everyone that's listening and watching here before we wrap up?
And that's true for moms, but that's true for anyone. Be gentler with yourself. Stop criticizing yourself right, left, and right, because we do that a lot. And because really be gentler with yourself. The more you can love to accept yourself with your ups and downs, with your flaws, with anything, the more you will accept people around you. So that's a priority, to work with yourself, on yourself, with the vulnerable part of yourself. It will create wonders in your life.
Yes, that's a beautiful message. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for being on the podcast today. You truly are a paradigm shifter. And thank you so much for the work that you do. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure.
Yes, you're welcome. So everyone, thanks for joining us. And please do check out Murielle's freebies and all that good stuff. Check out her website. And then we will see you in the next video, whatever that is. We'll see you out there. May you be at ease and know joy. Bye-bye.